All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we are going to be talking about,
I
yeah,
love this thing.
some recent archaeological discoveries.
Yeah.
And we've got some really interesting stops, I think. We're going to be going to France, um, Egypt, of course,
Right.
and England.
Can't go wrong with that combo, really.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's going to be a good one. And, as always, we've got some really cool finds and some really cool kind of insights to talk about. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's always amazing to see like what they're digging up, It seems like
Yeah.
every week there's something new.
Yeah. You would think that, we would be at this point kind of running out of stuff.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, they're finding new stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's like we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump right in. Why don't we start in France
Okay.
with what is being called, and I love this, the 7,000-year-old fashionista.
Ooh, I saw that. That's a great headline.
Very catchy. And so they found a 7,000-year-old skeleton, which is pretty cool in and of itself. But
Yeah.
what makes this one unique is that he was buried in a full outfit.
No, that's something you don't see every day.
No, not at all. And really what's so special about it is that, textiles decompose
Right, right.
really easily. So to find something this old is really, really rare.
It really is. And it gives us such a unique window into, what people were wearing back then, what the fashion was like.
And I think what's so interesting about it, and I think you kind of hit on this, is that it makes us think about, okay, what was clothing back then? Was it just purely functional? Or was there an element of style and self-expression?
Well, I mean, I think this discovery definitely points to the latter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't just a practical tunic or something.
This was high fashion.
This was haute couture 7,000 years ago. They said his jacket was decorated with like 158 seashells.
Yeah. All arranged in these intricate patterns. And then
And then
reindeer teeth.
16 reindeer teeth painted red.
Oh, yeah. Gotta have the pop of color, right?
Yeah, yeah. This guy was styling.
He knew how to make a statement, that's for sure.
So what do you think? What kind of statement was he trying to make?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, could it have been a status symbol, showing off his wealth or his position in society?
Right.
Or maybe it had religious significance. We know a lot of cultures used adornments like that for rituals or to connect with the spiritual world.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe he just wanted to stand out from the crowd.
Maybe he was just the prehistoric fashion icon,
Yeah.
setting trends
Right.
for the Stone Age chic look, right?
Yeah, that's right. I can't help but think, what are archaeologists going to be saying
Mhm.
about, our fashion thousands of years from now?
Oh, that's a fun thought.
Like what are they gonna make of, ripped jeans and graphic tees? Exactly. Will they see like, the logos on our shirts
Yeah.
as some kind of ancient language?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I love that. Okay,
It
so
really makes you think.
yeah. So let's move on to Egypt.
Okay.
Okay. So
Always a good time.
now Luxor, right,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been studied for centuries. I mean, this is
Well,
like you wouldn't think that there's much more to discover there.
you'd think they'd have found it all by now.
You would think, right?
But nope.
But nope. They just found a brand new statue of Amenhotep III,
No way.
and it is a stunner.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what makes it so special? Is it just the fact that they found it in Luxor?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, to find something like this, a statue of this quality in a place that's been so heavily excavated,
Yeah, that is pretty
it's
impressive.
is really amazing. And it just kind of goes to show like how
How much is still out there?
much is still out there.
Buried. Waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. But no, this statue, it's beautifully carved, it's polished. It shows him the pharaoh as a young man.
Oh, wow.
And so it's really, I mean, from what I've read about it, it's really a spectacular find. And then not only that,
There's more.
but they also found 66 fragments of other statues,
Gets out.
including some depicting the lion-headed goddess Sekhmet.
Sekhmet. Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Right. I mean, are you getting like Indiana Jones vibes here or
I
what?
mean, no, right? I mean, I'm picturing like the collapsing temple,
Yeah,
like the dust and the treasures.
with the light shining on the gold. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Sekhmet, for those who aren't familiar, she's a pretty intense goddess. Lion head, associated with war and destruction, but also healing and protection, like a real force of nature.
It's interesting that she would be found with Amenhotep III.
Yeah, well, it speaks to how the ancient Egyptians viewed
Yeah.
their pharaohs, right?
Great.
I mean, they weren't just kings. They were seen as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people.
Right.
So finding Sekhmet alongside him kind of reinforces that whole concept of divine power.
So it's not just about the objects, it's about
Right.
the story that they tell.
It's about the story they tell. It's about the beliefs,
Right.
the rituals, the whole worldview of a civilization.
Yeah.
It's like piecing together a giant puzzle.
It's fascinating.
And every new discovery adds another piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so speaking of powerful women in ancient Egypt, there's been a lot of talk lately about the possible discovery of Nefertiti's tomb.
Oh, Nefertiti. Now that would be huge.
Right. I mean, she's like a legend.
She's an icon.
I mean, everyone knows about her,
Well,
and
absolutely.
and so there's a lot of buzz that they may have finally found her final resting place.
So what's the story there?
Okay, so it all centers around a tomb called Amarna 26.
Okay.
And it was actually discovered way back in the 1880s.
Oh, wow.
Near the ancient city of Amarna.
Amarna. That's where Akhenaten, her husband, moved the capital, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating period.
And so they think that it belongs to Akhenaten
Okay.
and his daughter. Now, here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
This tomb has a third chamber that is unfinished.
Ooh, unfinished. That's interesting. Why would they leave it unfinished?
Well, and so that's where the speculation comes in,
Right. I see.
that maybe this is where Nefertiti was meant to be buried.
Oh, that's tantalizing.
Yeah, right.
So what have they found inside this tomb?
So they found over 200 figurines,
Wow.
a giant alabaster chest, and get this, 2 massive granite sarcophagi.
Like king-size sarcophagi.
Yeah, huge. I mean, it's...
So they were definitely expecting some VIPs in there.
Oh, absolutely.
But even with all that, they still can't say for sure who's buried there?
Right. And so that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. Like, why is it so difficult to identify the tomb's occupants? I mean, it seems like they've got a lot of...
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 2 giant sarcophagi, you'd think that would be a pretty big clue.
Right.
But it's not always that simple. You have to remember, these tombs are thousands of years old. They've been exposed to the elements, maybe looted. Things get moved around.
Right.
Inscriptions fade. So it's really like trying to solve a really, really old cold case.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
There's very few clues.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mystery continues.
For now. But who knows? Maybe one day we'll have a definitive answer.
Well, let's hope so. Okay, so before we move on to England for some Templar intrigue,
Right?
let's take a little detour into the world of facial reconstruction.
Oh, that's right. I read about that.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered like what famous historical figures actually look like?
Oh, all the time. I mean, you see those portraits, but you know they're not always accurate.
Right.
I mean, especially the older ones.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. So it turns out we can actually get pretty close these days thanks to some really amazing technology.
Really? Fill me in.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
Yeah. Okay, so
It's really amazing what they can do now. I mean, like, they take a skull and then they use, software and all this data they've collected to, like, basically build a face on top of it.
it's incredible, right? They've
Uh-huh.
done it with, like ancient Celtic people, King Richard III.
Oh, yeah, King Richard.
I mean, it's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and, it's not just about, like, satisfying your curiosity.
Right.
It can actually help us understand these people better,
Yeah.
like their health, their diet, even their social status. Sometimes,
Yeah.
the reconstructions reveal things that you just wouldn't be able to tell from the bones alone.
And it kind of brings them to life a little bit more, right?
Exactly. Like they become real people again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so speaking of mystery and intrigue, our last stop today takes us to England,
All right, great.
where we delve into the world of the Knights Templar.
Ooh, the Templars. Now we're talking.
Right, secret societies, hidden underground caves. I mean, come on.
I'm there.
It's got it all.
So for anyone who needs a refresher, who are the Knights Templar exactly?
Yeah, so basically they were this powerful religious military order that emerged during the Crusades.
Right, the Crusades.
And they did a lot, they protected pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land.
Yeah.
They amassed a considerable amount of wealth, and they had a lot of influence
Powerful bunch.
throughout Europe. But then in the early 14th century, things took a turn.
Oh,
They were accused of heresy.
heresy. Now that's a serious charge.
Yeah, and they were disbanded by the king.
Wow. So they went from top dogs to public enemy number one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
So where do these caves fit into all of this?
all right, the caves.
So these caves are in Shropshire, and they're thought to be about 700 years old, which puts them right around the time of the Templars.
Okay.
And some people believe that they served as a secret refuge for the knights.
Like a hideout.
Yeah, exactly. A place where they could practice their rituals and escape persecution.
So we're talking underground chambers, flickering torches, secret ceremonies.
Oh, yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds pretty cool.
Right, like something out of a Dan Brown novel.
Totally. But, okay, how do we know these caves were actually used by the Templars?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
I mean, couldn't they have been used by someone else or for something else entirely?
Absolutely. That's what archaeologists are trying to figure out.
So what are they looking for?
Well, they're looking for any clues that connect the caves to the Templars.
Okay.
Like, are there any architectural features that resemble Templar designs?
Right.
Have they found any artifacts associated with the order?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of detective work.
Like a historical puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. And, we may never know for sure, but the
Oh.
possibility that these caves were once a Templar sanctuary is pretty amazing.
It is. It really captures the imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes you wonder what else is out there just waiting to be discovered.
What other secrets are still hidden beneath our feet?
Right. Well, after this deep dive, I'm ready to grab a shovel and start digging.
I hear you. It's so inspiring to see all these discoveries.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that history is still being written,
Yeah,
that we're all part of this ongoing story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about you? What discovery stood out to you the most?
For me, it's got to be that 7,000-year-old fashionista from France.
Oh, yeah, he was styling.
I mean, the seashells, the reindeer teeth. Talk about making a statement.
Right. Like, even back then, people cared about how they looked.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It challenges our assumptions about, prehistoric times.
Yeah.
Like, we think of them as just basic survival, But clearly they had a sense of style, maybe even a social hierarchy.
Right, like who got to wear the fanciest outfits? Who got the best reindeer teeth?
Exactly. It's like, who was the influencer of the Stone Age?
Oh, I love that. The Stone Age influencer. I mean, that's a whole other deep dive right there.
Huh?
Right. And it makes you wonder, what will they say about us in 7,000 years?
I know. Right. Like, will they be dissecting, a pair of yoga pants, trying to figure out what it all meant?
Will they see athleisure as like a sign of status?
Or the downfall of civilization? Who knows?
Right. It's fascinating to think about.
It is. So, to all our listeners out there, what discovery really stuck with you? What got you thinking?
Yeah. Share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what resonated with you.
And, if you're interested in learning more about any of the topics we discussed today,
Yeah.
there are so many resources available.
Definitely. I mean, dive in, do some research,
Yeah, and you never know.
You might find.
You might just make the next big discovery.
You could be the one rewriting history.
That's right. Well, that wraps up another deep dive.
Another great one.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
What a pleasure.
And until next time, stay curious.